NHL season is here, and we're getting you ready with the FSGA Fantasy Hockey Expert Drafts on Bettor Sports Network.
Here comes Connor McDavid, scores! McCarr now along the half court zone, beautiful wheel around move. Shoots and scores!
Down low, another beautiful stop by Shesterkin on Granlund. He's really opening up the bag of tricks here tonight.
And now, our top line of Christopher Morais, Anthony Rivera, and Adam Bernard.
That's right, folks. Welcome into the 2023 FSGA Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft coverage live on Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. I'm Adam Bernard at Pucking Thoughts, and like the intro said, with me as always are my line mates, Mr. Anthony Rivera at Ant Rivera 86 below me, and to my right, Mr. Christopher Morais at Fuzzy Chris 91. Gentlemen, we've had a lot of practice with the mock drafts. We're doing it for real today, though. It's excited to get going.
It's the real deal today, and T-minus 24 hours or a little over 24 hours until some real hockey gets underway. So very excited to get this draft going, and very excited to see the National Hockey League tomorrow.
I am just as excited. Yes, we made it, right? I remember when, we were in our infant stages and we were still covering the playoffs with the, Vegas and Florida and everything that's going off. And now we have done so many practice rounds. We have all had our own drafts. We've even done best puck. We've done 14 team leagues. We've done everything. There is nothing left to cover. There's just this moment right now.
And right before, not too long before we took the air, some breaking news out of Manitoba. Connor Hellebuyck, a guy we talked about, being the top goalie trade candidate to a contender, and how that would affect fantasy down the line and future bets and stuff like that. He's not going anywhere. Him and Mark Scheifele signed identical 7-year contract extensions worth $59.5 million, aka cap hit of $8.5 million per year. Certainly I think a good deal for both guys there. But it does change the landscape of things here a little bit. So what are your thoughts, initial thoughts when you first heard this? Let's start with you, Chris.
Obviously, I was disappointed because I thought he was leaving and I thought he was going straight to your team, Anthony. I thought he was going into Jersey. It was just a matter. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. And now I guess he likes it, right? In Winnipeg. Maybe he's going to get what Connor McDavid has, get a heated driveway. So he doesn't have to worry about the snow. He can kind of figure that out. But it was interesting to see him get the same deal as Scheifele. I thought Connor Hellebuyck could probably command close to $10 million, probably 10.5 somewhere else. I guess he is happy to be there. He had publicly stated that he wanted to be somewhere where he thought he could win. Obviously, him staying there, Scheifele staying there, this keeps Winnipeg relevant. I think they can still be a good team. Are they a Stanley Cup contending team? No, but now it's up to the players there to change the narrative and figure that out.
Yeah, definitely what Chris said. It definitely affects me up here in New Jersey. It affects the Devils because the Devils, I felt, were that one goalie away from possibly being that cup contender. Now, they could still be. We might get something out of Vanacek, or maybe Schmid takes the lead on that. But Hellebuyck is a whole different type of goalie, and to have him on the team would have been very exciting. Also affects my prop that we did last week on our episode of Bettor Hockey Now, where I thought he would possibly be the winner of the Vezina, because I thought if he played hard enough to get himself out of Winnipeg, it would be just enough. And then, to latch on to a team that's a winning cup contender, it would put him right in prime position to be the Vezina. Had nice prop there, but I don't know now, because we're on a Winnipeg team that I don't know how I feel about them. I don't feel like they are a playoff team this year. I feel like other teams have leapfrogged them. We'll see if Hellebuyck could be the difference, but I'm not too sure right now. It doesn't really change much for me for Winnipeg.
Well, certainly plenty to talk about with the fallout of that coming up here with the season tomorrow. But we are here to cover the Fantasy Sports Gaming Association live American League draft here, as well as the Champions League draft. We're going to be bringing you pick-by-pick coverage of the American League draft. But we got Chris, who's going to be in that league, and we'll have a few participants from that league come on throughout the draft as well. We'll check in on the Champions League as well. Let's go check the scoring format that works for both leagues here, the Champions and the American League. It's a 17-round draft, so you got 2 centers, 3 wingers, 3 defensemen, 2 goalies, 7 bench spots, no trades. That is important to note. So just keep that in mind when we're drafting. And then the scoring, as you can see on the other side, for skaters, a goal is 6 points, assist is 4, power play point is 2, shot on goal just under a point at 0.9, hits at 0.5 points, a block is 1. Then over on the goalie side, a win will get you 5 points. A goal against is -3. And then saves are 0.6 and shutouts are worth 5. So there is your scoring format for both the Champions and the American League. Now, speaking of the Champions League, we do have last year's champion coming in from RotoWire. He's also the former senior hockey writer and editor at Roto World for 17 years. So here he is, Michael Feinwax. Michael, how are we doing this evening? Are we ready to draft?
I'm ready. I'm ready to draft.
Now, last year, you're the defending champ, so tell us a little bit about the guys that carried you to that championship last year.
Well, truthfully, I didn't have a great draft the first 10 rounds, but from 11 to 17, I ended up with Vanacek, Allmark, Toffoli, Carlson, Heeshire, and McAvoy. So that's where I wanted. I got I didn't get lucky early on. My only good pick was probably Jack Hughes in the 6th round, but outside of that, I didn't have an especially good draft early on. So it's really important late that you pick up these type of guys.
Linus Ullmark certainly helped you out a little bit there last year, huh?
Sure did. So did Erik Karlsson.
Yes, both of them. Those are 2 cornerstones to work well. But I don't want to say luck into, but certainly worked out in your favor. But we were just talking about Connor Hellebuyck. What is your reaction to the news there out of Winnipeg?
I think it's great for Winnipeg. He's one of the top 3-4 goalies in the league, and there was so much talk that everyone wanted to leave Winnipeg, and it's kind of nice that that some people want to stay. It's gonna make them a playoff contender for sure. I mean, Hellebuyck is a great goaltender. I hope I can get him tonight.
Oh, tipping our hand a little bit.
Yeah. Well, he plays so much, and goaltending is so important in these drafts with all the points available. So he's just a great player, and with Vasilevsky out until late November at the earliest, he moves up a little bit.
Excellent point there.
Michael, that I saw when they just brought up all the point scoring and all that stuff, and I saw that there was no trades involved in this league. So I'm going to ask you, because I haven't been a part of a league that had no trades in it, but what is the most challenging aspect of being a part of this league?
Well, seriously, the most important thing is trying to make it into the playoffs without using any of your fab money. Because what I did last year was I saved all my fab money for the last 2 rounds of the playoffs. And then, last year was a bit of an anomaly because Buffalo played so many games the last 2 weeks. So I ended up just taking Buffalo guys and just, a big thing is, the league is really a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday league. And it's trying to find these guys, these teams like Winnipeg, like Anaheim, who play a lot of Friday, Sunday. And it's daily transactions. So when you can move them in and out, it really, really helps that, you don't have 17 guys playing on Thursday and nobody playing on Friday. These are big, big things in this league.
One thing I noticed about being in this format last year in the American League is that goalie tandems are pretty important, because that way you pretty much guarantee that, okay, fine, I'm going to have every start in that game. You can go with a hero strategy and try and have as many number 1s as possible. But for me, I found going with a tandem strategy worked a lot better.
I really like that too, because I took Shesterkin and the backup in New York. I forget already who it was. Right. And you just move them in. You have to watch who's starting. You have to be very important. It's very important, that you have the goalie in there. And, if you can get on a good team, you can get 50 wins right off the bat. And because you can take the Halaks very, very late. So, this year, it's a good idea to take Johansson and Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay. I'm still a big Tampa Bay fan. I think the injury to Vasilevsky will actually really help their Stanley Cup chances because he's going 7 months without really playing, whereas in previous years they went all the way to the Cup final so many times, and he only got 3 months of rest. He's getting 7 months rest now. He'll be sharp on playoff time, and I think that's really important.
That's fair. Michael, you brought up a great point that I think a lot of fantasy owners forget, and that is the schedule and looking for it when you head into those Monday weeks and trying to plan your roster. Because even though you draft one, it's your roster can look very different from week to week to week. If you had to give one piece of advice for someone, right, who's in those daily kind of leagues about setting up in it, how often are you checking the schedule leading up to the week? And how often are you trying to, get that first player off the waiver wire?
I'm checking 2 and 3 weeks in advance, and it gives you a big advantage. Like, I thought I made a great move last year when Landeskog was just let go. I thought for sure he was going to be back in January. So in November I was 7-1. I wasn't really worried about that extra spot, so I just picked them up. It didn't work out, but I mean those are the types of moves that really, really help.
That's a great point, though.
Well, one more before we get you out of here, because we got the Americans League draft starting up here in just a few minutes. One of the guys you talked about in your free agency recap at rotowire.com was Tyler Bertuzzi. Now, are we excited about the value he can provide in the middle to later rounds because of him being in that Toronto top 6? Or is the injury bug a little too much and you'd rather maybe take your shot on somebody else?
I actually love Bertuzzi. I think playing top 3 or top 6 is a huge advantage. I mean, look at how well he played once he went to Boston. He had 10 points in the playoffs in only 7 games. He was absolutely terrific. So I'm all in on Bertuzzi. Later, well, not early, obviously, but in the middle rounds, he's worth taking a chance.
There you go. That is Michael Feinwax over at RotoWire. Now, do you want anything you got coming up this season in terms of regular coverage on the NHL that you'd like to let us know what's going on with you?
I write columns every week on daily fantasy, and just looking at the wire and seeing what's happening. So those are my columns.
Well, there you go. That's Michael Feinwax of RotoWire and the defending Champions League champ from 2022-23, and he's going to be on the clock here in about 15 minutes along with me. And don't snipe any of my guys, okay, Michael?
I'll try not to.
I don't know if I believe you. Happy drafting, Michael.
You too. Thank you very much.
There we go. First guest in the books here on the 2023 FSGA Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft coverage. So, Chris, we getting a little nervous here? We're about a minute away here on the clock.
There's no nervousness here. I am ready. There's nothing that can prepare me to this. The great thing about this is that you can go into it, and there are no robots, right? There are no people who don't know a lot less than you. These are people who know their stuff, right? Like Matt said, like he's looking 2 weeks in advance at a schedule. Like we are talking about the commitment and dedication to making sure that there is no stone left unturned. So no real, I feel like it's maybe not game 7 overtime of a Stanley Cup playoff game, but I feel like maybe it's game 1 of a Stanley Cup final, and you're a rookie in that, and you have no idea what you to expect. So you didn't really get a ton of sleep before, but your pregame meal was good, so you're all set.
Now, because he feels so good is because he's prepared. And how do you get prepared? Go to fantasyalarm.com/win, go all pro and get the draft guide for your last second drafts, but the benefits last throughout the season. Guys like Chris and Andrew Duhurst bring you the latest fantasy analysis, including the DFS daily playbook, player projections, and showdown playbooks for those Monday, Wednesday, Fridays when the action's a little light, plus the weekly waiver wire and injury reports. So go to fantasyalarm.com/win and go all pro today. And just to give you an idea, here's some of the rankings that you can get right now over at fantasyalarm.com. Obviously, Connor McDavid, number 1, Pastrnak there at number 2. So there's the look of what you can get. And go ahead and sign up. As you can hear from the background here, we're going to have a draft starting up right now. And let me get on the screen for you momentarily.
Very interesting to see Pastrnak at number 2. I know we talked about it off air, but considering where that team is right now, where Boston's top 6 is right now, and Pavel Zacha leading that top line, interesting to see still that Pastrnak is right up there at number 2, right ahead of Draisaitl, who, when you're drafting, for the most part, I would say 95%, maybe more, you'll see Connor McDavid 1, Draisaitl 2 in most drafts.
That's fair, but you also need, don't forget, Pasta scores goals. There is no exception, and somebody still has to score for Boston. So, can you contain him? Probably not. You're just hoping he doesn't finish those games with 2 or 3 goals and 8 shots on goal, and one of those was a power play goal, and one of those was a game-winning goal. There is opportunity here for him to really he could outscore the number that he had last year. It's just the problem is that support. I don't know if he needs a supporting staff. You know what I mean? I think kind of maybe not in the same breath as young Ovechkin, but Ovechkin, I mean, I could have passed him the puck and he'd probably score, 60. He just needs somebody to lay it up for him there. So I don't think it's bad in leagues, especially that reward you for, goals and reward you for shots. And those are heavily put. For sure. I don't think it's as big a reach.
I agree. I mean, listen, there's going to be a regression in Boston just because of how historical the season was. But Pastrnak is not a guy that I look at and I'm like, oh, well, he's going to take a huge step back. I mean, maybe he has 1 or 2 less goals, 1 or 2 less assists. I can't see his production drop, even without having Bergie there in the middle anymore. And, later on in the show, we have other guests coming up. Rob Touzé, executive producer of Fantasy Sports Radio, big Bruins fan. I'm sure he'll have a nice take on what he thinks about Pastrnak there and where he ranks among the top 5 and how Boston moves on without Patrice Bergeron as he retired. So looks like the draft is getting ready to go here shortly. First up is going to be another guest coming on the show later, Mr. Chris Wassel. He will be joining us at about 6:45. Paul Bruno of RotoWire also joining us at 6:20. And then, like I said, Rob Touzé at 7 p.m. So waiting for that draft to get going here. Chris, you're going to be picking in the 7th spot. So, I don't want you to necessarily, in case anybody's watching in the draft, I don't want to give anything away here, but you've got an idea, a couple of guys that you're going to be very happy with, I think, at 7. That's a good spot for somebody to fall to you.
That is a great spot. That is not the spot I wanted, though. So once again, the randomize of the random of Yahoo is once again put me a little bit behind the ball. I love drafting at the top of the order. I love drafting at the end. I like the turn. I have no problem in that. The middle is the consistency. You know that you're going to be able to get a pretty good pick every single round. It stays consistent. So the strategy behind it is a little bit easier. The turn is just, I want that next best player as quickly as possible, right? So in round 1, you're going to get a stud, right? They're all studs barring injury. And then even in round 2, right? But there's a different tier list at that point in round 2. I would say your first 10 picks in a draft, whichever player you're taking, they are the cream of the crop. They are the best. So it's not problematic. It gives me a couple of ways that I can go. So depending on what some people do in front of me, that will allow me to dictate how I want to proceed afterwards.
What's great about this, though, Chris, is that you are prepared. We have gone over during Bettor Hockey Now over the whole summer, mock draft after mock draft after mock draft in different positions, in different spots, picking different players. So I think I have my full faith in you that you will get the job done tonight.
I'm glad you feel so. That is good. That is the type of encouragement I needed.
So the draft is underway. Christopher will be on the clock here very shortly. First 3 picks, no surprise. Connor McDavid at number 1, Leon Draisaitl at number 2. I mean, you could pretty much set your watch to those 2 being the top 2 picks in any draft, unless you have some, variation where you value something or other. But then Nate McKinnon goes at 3rd overall. Certainly not a bad, so far as expected. I've seen Austin Matthews go there, David Pastrnak go there. You can't really go wrong at 3 with any of those guys because you're not going to have McDavid or Draisaitl, but you can have the pick of the litter otherwise.
And this is where it gets a little tougher, right? Obviously, 1 and 2, we just talked about it. McDavid, Draisaitl. Usually, you'll be picking those guys no matter. Like, no one's not going to pick McDavid at number 1. Maybe someone would go a different way number 2, but for the most part, you're going Leon Draisaitl. But you go into 3, 4, and 5, and now it's a pick of the litter of some of the best players in the NHL, right? Because you have the top tier in Connor McDavid, and now you're going to get some really, really good players here. And there you go. David Pastrnak at number 4. So he's off the board.
First winger off the board here. Remember, this is not a left wing, right wing format. This is just winger. So the value of left wings may be drying up a little bit earlier than the right wings, which are a little bit deeper. Left wing's probably a little more top heavy. Don't matter here. So there you go. So Austin Matthews off the board with the 5th pick. Matthew Tkachuk at 6. So far through the first 6 picks with Chris on the clock here coming up, everything's going as expected. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy. And we'll see what our man does here with the 7th pick. John and Pember, a fantasy alarm. He took Leon Draisaitl at number 2 there. Let's see here. Chris is on the clock. And the Champions League is about 9 minutes away from starting.
Yeah, we do have Chris on the clock here. And Matthew Tkachuk went right before. What are you guys' feelings on Matthew Tkachuk this year? Because, he's coming off one of the best postseasons, and we're talking about a guy who was injured for most of the postseason, kind of carrying that Florida Panthers team into the Stanley Cup Finals.
He's the top option there for sure. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to like him, especially if you're in a banger league. He's definitely up there even more. But he has the production even without that. And I think he's somebody that, we talked about on our futures edition of Bettor Hockey Now, which will be coming out weekly on Tuesdays starting next week. I would bet on him for the Hart Trophy.
It's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. And if you're, getting in those prop bets, that's a guy that's going to bring you some value for sure. We see, Chris, you went Cale Makar here. What was the thought process in making that decision with all of these forwards going?
There were a couple of options that I was thinking of. Obviously, Jack Hughes was the other one there. He went right after. So I think that was either I get an elite forward or I get an elite defenseman. So there are no trades, right? And I think that's a factor as well. So for me, if I can have one, to me, the premier of defensemen in the league is Cale Makar. He is above and beyond, at least for what I think he is. And owning that player, you cannot find, a defenseman of that quality, of that caliber, right, on the waiver wire. Again, you can find forwards who can pitch in, depending on where they move up in the lineup and, who they're playing with and stuff like that. Like whoever's playing on McDavid's wing obviously gets a boost because McDavid is that good. But that's not the story for defensemen, right? And Makar has proven that he is the early Norris favorite. There is no reason to believe that he cannot do so. I have him penciled as well based on some of these rankings that I've looked at that he could score over 20 goals. And there are not many defensemen in the NHL who can put up those kind of numbers on a really good hockey team too. Like if I can't get, Nathan McKinnon or, I passed on Mikko Rantanen. I did the thing that most people do, which is forget that Rantanen exists. But I saw him there and I wanted to get my quality defenseman right off the bat. Just go there.
For me, I used to be a guy that I'll worry about defense later. I'll get those guys filled in. But no, I've completely come around now with the amount of, a guy like Cale Makar is in a class by himself. But then you go into that second tier with Dahlin and Yossi and Adam Fox. I think it's so important to at least get one cornerstone defenseman that you can count on. And I'm a guy that likes to go 2. So that way, if you lose with that strategy, if you lose your top guy, you still got somebody else there. So Jack Hughes, Mikko Rantanen, Jason Robertson, Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov, and Brady Tkachuk end up rounding up round 1. No big surprises there. But on the turn, round 2, Fanjections takes Igor Shesterkin. That's our first goalie off the board. And speaking of quality defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin there. So Shesterkin first goalie off the board. Is Shesterkin the guy or is Sorokin the guy that should be the first off the board? You can't go wrong either way if you're going with a Big Apple goaltender.
It's funny because obviously Sorokin is a number 1 in a lot of the rankings, but you look at the team he's on and it's a little hard when you're talking about a team that the points there are for wins it might be a little hard with Sorokin in that Islanders team. So we know Shesterkin's gonna play a lot of games, especially with Quick, who is his backup. Probably you don't want to see him, right, Adam? You're a Ranger fan. You probably don't want to see as much of Quick. You're gonna get Shesterkin in there a lot, and the Rangers are a really good team. They're gonna get the wins, and that's probably the guy you want to go number one. We saw now Jake Ottinger's the second goalie taken. So Sorokin is kind of falling a little bit here, and we kind of know why, right? He's on the Islanders. They're a tough team to watch. They don't score a lot of points. It might be hard for them to win. And look how much a win is. A win for a goalie, 5 points. So you really want to. You might get the saves, but the 5 points are very important for wins. Obviously, shutouts help out as well. So we'll see where Sorokin goes in this draft. But we already got 2 top goalies off in Shesterkin and Ottinger.
And Georgiev with Chris's last pick there. Chris, why Georgiev over maybe somebody else?
I had Ottinger queued up, so that's where I was going. I think Georgiev is he's going to be just fine. Pablo Francouz is going on IR, so he's not in a conversation to be had. I'm not worried about him stealing starts. Georgiev's going to be the workhorse. I know a lot of times, right? People like to look at the depth in their goaltending, like you guys said, get the handcuff for him. I didn't want to go down that route, not exactly just now. There's some goalies who started to go off, so usually the goalie run starts that convinces everybody else to get a piece. I thought starting my draft coming in, if you told me I could get a defenseman and a goalie in my first 2 picks based on where I was drafting, then I would have said mission accomplished. So those are positions that I feel are harder to fill as the draft goes on. So being able to secure those 2 early, I feel like that puts my team in a good spot.
Now, Ottinger was taken by Paul Bruno, who's going to be joining us here momentarily, so you'll be able to pick your bone with him. After you, Roman Josi, third defenseman off the board. Then we see Mitch Marner go, and now currently Brendan's boys on the clock. That's it looks like Brandon Maskell of Square to Sharp.
I really do like the Georgiev pick because I always pencil him in my draft. I'm always looking to see how the goalies shape out. Shesterkin, if I can't get Shesterkin at number 1, I kind of wait a little bit. Obviously, I don't know. I have a feeling about Sorokin. We just talked about it, but if Georgiev comes in as the 3rd, 4th goalie taken, I'm kind of in that part in taking him. So I do like this little move you did there, Chris.
Speaking of Sorokin, there he goes to John and Pemba of Fantasy Alarm. So a guy that is a number 1 goalie in many fantasy rankings is off the board, and there goes Connor Hellebuck. So 5th goalie off the board, fresh off of his $8.5 million contract. And there goes UC Saros. So we have our first, we're going to call it a goalie run here. Here we go.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think John's going to take one coming back, but you could certainly see a goalie go, and probably of those next 4 picks after that, probably at least 1 or 2 of those guys can go goalie there. So we'll see what develops there. Elias Pettersson, he went in the 2nd round. There, when we were first doing mock drafts, he was, ADP was way high. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair spot for Pettersson there in that middle to late 2nd round.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him on a tough Vancouver team. Him as well as, even going back to the goalies, I think that, you're getting value getting Sorokin there. So I think John and Pemba lucked out having Sorokin fall all the way there for him.
Now, getting underway here in less than a minute is the Champions League draft. I will be picking in the 12th spot there, so I'm on the turn. I'm very excited about that for multiple reasons. A, I love the turn.
Mm-hmm.
2, when I'm trying to keep an eye on this draft through this draft and host, that allows me to just make my picks and then have the maximum amount of time before I have to worry about making my pick again. So very happy about that for production reasons as well. We are about almost midway through the 3rd round of the American League draft for the FSGA Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft 2023 here on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Now, the next person we're going to have join us here on the show is Paul Bruno. Paul is from RotoWire, and he hold on. And I'm going to bring him on the screen right now. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time here in the middle of the draft. And Why? So you got Hughes and Ettinger to open up. So that's a good start right there.
Well, it is. Off the top, I wanted to get a top sniper who gets a lot of shots on goal, and I was lucky to get a guy who plays two positions as well, so it gives me some flexibility. And I wanted to grab one of the top goalies. I think Dallas is going to win that division, so I'm happy to get Ottinger too. So I'm pretty pleased with the first two picks that I have. And I'm coming around to my third one, so I'm going to give you my thought process when it comes up.
All right.
You know, Paul, I'm a huge Devils fan here, and I always like to kind of be placed around, that 6 or 7 spot, because Jack Hughes will be lingering there, and that's a good spot for him. I know he's been ranked, I think, around 11-ish, 10 around there, but with that team that's surrounding him right now, you're talking about Timo Meier, Tyler Toffoli, Jesper Bratt. This could be a very big year for Jack Hughes.
No doubt about it. I mean, the guy is the offensive catalyst for the club, but you mentioned he's surrounded by a lot of talent there. And I think they're going to be competing for the top of that division and the top of the Eastern Conference. So that's another thing I look at. I want to have my players playing for good clubs and be motivated. So,
well, you definitely did that with the first 2 picks. Hughes, Jake Ottinger, they were 2 games away from going to the Stanley Cup final. He's a really good goalie. That's one that I definitely keep tabs on when I'm drafting as well.
Well, and I'm in the on deck circle here coming up to my pick. So I got some thoughts bouncing in my head, but I don't want to give them away just yet.
Yeah, I can't imagine why. I get what the hesitation is. It's not like the person in front of you is literally on the call with you or anything.
So make your pick and I'll make mine.
So while we're waiting for him to make his pick, have we recovered from the Blue Jays being out of the playoffs? Because your Twitter feed, you looked a little emotional there as you come on the clock here. I don't mean to rattle.
You know what? I was a scorekeeper for the club for 29 years, and the first 2 were the World Series years. So I know a thing or two about watching a winning team. And I knew from opening day this was not it. And I have to say, on my YouTube channel, I went on a pretty good rant about it. So I'll leave it at that. And in the meantime, I will pick from the Dallas Stars, Rupe Hintz.
Nice.
There you go. I like that pick there. And you go into you get too deep at center, right at the top.
Yeah, but like I said, I have the flexibility to take Hughes and make him a winger, so I don't shy away from a guy who figures to center one of the top lines in hockey again this year.
Now, you talked about you used to score with the Blue Jays. You developed the prototype for what the NHL's real-time scoring system, which has been around since the mid-'90s, is. So let's take a little fantasy hockey break here, and I want to hear about that.
Well, I was in between jobs, and I was a huge hockey fan. Your shoot. Let's see. Did I get a default?
You're good. You're good. We got you.
Okay, so what happened there was in early 90s, I had the idea being a scorekeeper in the baseball world, and I thought in hockey, we only had goals and assists and penalty minutes at the time, and they didn't track a lot of other stuff that's people have come to know now, face-offs won and lost, hits, blocked shots, defensive zone, offensive zone time, individual ice time, which was never tracked. And I set up a program in 1992, and I sold it to the National Hockey League back then. So every league in the world now uses it, and the stats that we're looking at are a big part of what it spits out on a game-by-game basis. So I'm really proud of the involvement that I had in that vein. And if any of you want to write up the application for the Hall of Fame, go to town.
We'll get on that after the draft coverage is over. We'll draft something up here. What fantasy stat before like that was developed would be like impossible to track otherwise? Is there anything that made it a lot easier to keep track of?
Well, the way it worked, we made it easy because we have 6 guys in each 6 people in each stadium covering the games, and each of them has an individual assignment. For instance, how do you do the individual ice time? Well, you have a guy that has a typewriter with the player numbers on it, and he just looks at the boards when they come on and off the ice, and that's his job. Do that. Then you have another guy tracking the shot attempts. Keep an eye on where the puck is. Anytime there's a shot attempt, you're responsible for the location, the number, and the team. So we break it down to its basic components. And so it's easy enough for each person to do their respective assignments. And at the end of the game, you've got a tremendous scouting tool. You've got a tremendous analytical tool, and it spits out all manner of statistics. And we're still going through the second or third iteration of what this thing is capable of and what it opens up.
That's really cool. I love hearing about stuff like that. Like I'm a geek about things like that.
Well, me too. And I happened to capitalize on that and turn it into something, and I'm really proud of it. So a good out.
You got another pick coming up here, so we'll wait. You're actually on the clock now. You go ahead and make that pick, and then we'll talk about that. I am about 4 picks away from making my pick in the Champions League draft. Just to recap here, we talked about the goalie run earlier. Adding, we had a little mini one just now. Stu Skinner, Ilya Samsonov, and Andrei Vasilevsky. So there he goes in the fourth round. And probably maybe somebody that Paul was going to take potentially. I don't know, but he takes Philip Gustafsson instead. Are we happy with that?
No, I'm taking Dougie Hamilton.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, you're the next clock here. Okay, my apologies. So going Dougie Hamilton, and shout out to Jonathan Casilli in the chat, who said that should have been the next defenseman taken after Carlson. So there you go. And speaking of Erik Karlsson, Better Boss wants to know, can Erik Karlsson still do it in Pittsburgh this year? What do you think, Paul?
No way, not even close. He's going to be dropping by about 30 points, and I think Father Time is going to be cruel to him this year. He was lucky to be healthy, and he joins an old guard there at the front of that Pittsburgh lineup, and a lot of people are high on them. I certainly am not. I mean, wonder when was the last time Malkin has come off a full season of play. It was maybe a decade ago. So I'm not looking for history repeat for a lot of the Pittsburgh Penguins top guys, and I don't have it. I have it in for Kyle Dubas too, so maybe that's tinging my commentary.
Paul, you cover a lot of sports. So what storyline are you looking forward to most in this NHL season?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the lesser lights in the Atlantic Division challenging for a playoff spot, and I don't think the division race is going to be confined to 2 or 3 teams. I think it's going to be 6 deep in that division, and of course, my favorite team is in there too, the Leafs, and they're the consensus for the top of the league and top of the ladder in that grouping. But I think teams like Ottawa and Buffalo are 2 that I'm really excited to see what they do in the regular season. They both, I think, have done a nice job in terms of a rebuild in the last couple of years, and particularly the Sabres blue line. I mean, they made some headlines with a big dollar payout to their all-star defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, and they've got Owen Power in there too. So you won't find a better dynamic duo in terms of size and skill than those guys on any team in the league over the next 10 years, I don't think. So that's something their bank. And Ottawa's done a very nice job creating a pretty nice 6-pack up front, and they have a nice top pair of offensive-minded defensemen as well in their grouping. But both teams need to find some answers in net, and there's some question marks there for both clubs.
Absolutely. Paul, we thank you so much for the time joining us mid-draft there so far through 4 rounds. He's got Jack Hughes, Jake Ottinger, Rupe Hintz, and Dougie Hamilton. So a really good core 4 there for Paul. Paul, thanks so much. And also, is there anything you'd like to promote for any of your upcoming coverage for the NHL season?
Well, I have a podcast at RotoWire, and you can check it out on the RotoWire website on the hockey tab. We do a weekly podcast with my partner, AJ Schultz. It's my 9th year doing that. We talk about all the news that's fit to hear and give you roster updates every week, because RotoWire is the best in the business in providing player notes and updates on status of players and lineups, and we share with everybody.
That's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Paul, thank you so much for the time, and good luck with the rest of your draft.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate it. Paul. So there he goes, Paul Bruno. And now we talked again to go back to the theme with goalies there after that little 3 goalie run. Jacob Markstrom and Jeremy Swayman go. So definitely a lot of the top goalies off the board here. Chris, to go back to your last pick, JT Miller out of Vancouver. In the 4th, he's a guy I've seen slipping, and it's, at the 4th round, you almost have to just be like, all right, fine, I'm taking him. I'm not going to let him go any further.
JT Miller does a lot of things, specifically throw his weight around. I've talked about it as well outside of, Brady Tkachuk, who had like a ton of hits. Only Alex Ovechkin, I think had more points. No, not even. JT Miller finished 2nd behind Matthew Tkachuk in hits and points. So he throws his weight around, which is, if they're going to reward you for doing something, might as well do it. I needed a centerman as well, so that's kind of fun. He should end up having dual position eligibility at some point. I think at one point he's going to find his way onto a line with Elias Pettersson. I don't know how good the Vancouver Canucks are going to be, specifically Thatcher Demko. That defense just lacks substance. So I think they're going to be playing a lot of catch-up hockey, which is good news for me because that means JT Miller's probably going to touch 20, 21 minutes in ice time a night. Elias Pettersson's not throwing his weight around. Whoever decides to play on that line as well with them, whether it's Andrei Kuzmenko, whether it's Brock Besser, Kuzmenko doesn't hit, doesn't block, doesn't shoot. So JT Miller's the driving force there. He makes every line that he plays on better. So I felt like it was good value to get him there. I got Timo Meier the round before. So I locked up my player. I got my exposure to New Jersey. I got my exposure to a full year of, playing with Jack, with Jack Hughes, or playing with Nico Hischier, or whatever other talented devil is on that team. He's going to see that top power play minutes. I'm not worried about the shot share. I'm not worried about, the Devils can shoot the puck 45 times a night. So I'm not too concerned there with them. A full year of Timo Meier in New Jersey is good. I don't know how great he was after the trade deadline. It's fine. You're coming into a whole new city. It would be something, you gentlemen probably know, moving from, San Jose to New Jersey is probably a culture shock a little bit. The weather might not be the same either. So he's probably well adjusted now. He's got his family around. Everything is good. Playing with Jack Hughes and, like I said, or Nico Hischier, it doesn't matter to me which one. So I'm happy about that. I needed a little bit of skill up front, and I was able to achieve that.
Adam, you talked about being in that spot that, you get that turn of the snake, right? And we have, at the beginning, we had Evan Bouchard and Quinn Hughes, two defensemen going back to back. What are your thoughts on that kind of tandem for your fantasy team?
Well, we talk about, defenseman tiers and how Makar is top tier by himself. And then that second tier is Dahlin, Yossi, Fox. I'll even throw Carlson and Hamilton in there. I think Bouchard and Hughes is the beginning of that third tier. And listen, as Chris politely put it, the defense lacks substance. So yes, there's going to be a lot of pucks put in the back of the net, but that's not going to stop Quinn Hughes from doing what he did last year, where he have 7 goals and 65 assists or something like that along those lines. So I don't expect much of a drop-off in that regard. I think he could absolutely get to those numbers again. And listen, Evan Bouchard, as Chris likes to say on Bettor Hockey Now, runs one of the best power plays in the world, if not the best power play in the world. So that for a league where power play points are going to matter a little bit, like this league, having a defenseman like that up there is very important to have.
And we have our we mentioned tandems earlier on in the show with Michael. We have our tandem there. I don't know if you mentioned it while going through the draft numbers, but Swayman and Linus Ullmark went, back to back for the third pick of the draft. And there's a tandem there in Boston to have. And if you're going to do one, Ullmark and Swayman are as good as any.
And here's the other thing too. Fine, Boston's going to take a step back this year for sure. Okay, fine. They had 135 points last year. Even if they regress 25, 30 points, they're still north of 100 points. And there's a lot of goalie tandems for 100-point teams or north of 100-point teams that you're going to gladly take. So good on there. They get McKinnon, Stützle, Ullmark, Aho. So no defensemen or wingers yet, but has certainly built out his center group and his crease. Now, Chris was on the clock, and I was going to give an update on the Champions League draft. But no, we can't wait anymore because Chris got his guy.
It has happened.
I got him.
It has happened.
Levi.
I got him. Goalies are starting to run. There's a lot of teams that are starting to stack up their 2 goalies, which would make sense. You don't want to fall behind in that category. I think there's only one team that doesn't have a goalie. So I wanted to make sure at this point that my goaltending situation was complete. I don't know how many owners are going to try to run 3 goalies, but clearly I started at the right time because a lot of goalies went off the board as well. Jonas Korpisalo, Sergei Bobrovsky, Thatcher Demko. And that group, I'm going to take the upside on Devin Levi. Look, I've mentioned it 100 times. The Buffalo Sabres were 1 point out of a playoff spot, and they did that with, Craig Anderson. And Craig was 41 at that point, so nothing to hold against him. But again, this Buffalo team can be really, really good. I think they're going to make some additions. If they are contending for a playoff spot, then that means that Devin Levi is doing well. They're going to go out and add more players to make that team even better. You can add quality defensemen at the trade deadline, guys who are, cheaper. Your 5, 6, and 7 defensemen that are out there to really protect. I'm not looking at Rasmus Dahlin. I'm not even looking at Owen Powers to be those defensive defensemen. I need them to go out and do some offensive stuff for me. So I just felt like it was a good idea to kind of grab him here, thinking that goalies would run afterwards, and all those goalies that were taken after were in the consideration. I just thought the upside with Levi is there. I just need him. And again, if he's not in a great spot, I still got my workhorse in Gorgiev, so I'm happy. And then the next player that I wanted also fell to me, so that's kind of great since the goalie run happened at the exact perfect time. I'm going to take the upside here. Another player that, I mean, I don't know how many times I've said nice things about him. That won't stop. I'm going to continue to say nice things about him. That's Clayton Keller.
Yeah.
There you go. If I can pair him with Timo, Clayton's still the guy who's got to do all the dirty work here. He's got to go out there. He's still, I guess, I don't even know if I want to call him a veteran of that team because they're just so young and so inexperienced. But just watching what he was able to do in that year where he just took the Coyotes on his back and all of a sudden just was dragging anybody who wanted to come with him. This Coyotes team is better than they were last year. So I don't know how great they're going to be league-wise. Like, I don't know if they're going to move up the standings, but they're definitely going to be fun to watch. And I am all for fun. I'm here for fun. So I want a piece of Clayton Keller. So Devin Levi, Clayton Keller, just two guys that I had on the up anyways. And I can now be a proud Sabres closet fan with Devin Levi now.
It would have been an absolute travesty if we got into this draft and Chris did not get Devin Levi at all. I mean, we have talked about him probably every episode of Bettor Hockey Now, and for Chris not to get him would have been an absolute travesty. And with Clayton Keller, Arizona gets overlooked because they're a bad team, right? I mean, we all know that they're not a playoff contender, although some people seem to think that they might sneak in, but there are players on that team that you want to consider. Obviously, Clayton Keller, number one. You look at his line with Barrett Hayton, Nick Schmaltz, who, helped me to a title last season in winning my fantasy championship. And then you got Logan Cooley, who will be up there. We've seen what he's done during the preseason already. So there are some guys that you want to take from these teams. And obviously, Clayton Keller is going to get a lot of scoring opportunities on that top line. So, more power to you taking those two guys. Those are good value picks right there with Devin Levi and Clayton Keller.
Keller certainly going to be the straw that stirs the drink there in Arizona. And Alex DeBrincat going at 6'10" there. I love that in a league where hits matter. He's going to be on that top line of Detroit. He's a guy I maybe even would have snagged a tiny bit earlier. Now, just to give you an update on the Champions League draft, if you see me looking up like this, that's me trying to figure out who I want to take. We are about 4 rounds into that draft. On the first turn, I got Brady Tkachuk and Cale Makar. Absolutely love those two to start. And then on the second turn, I just took, believe it or not, Rasmus Dahlin. So I'm stacking Cale Makar and Rasmus Dahlin as my top 2 defensemen. And then I took Vasilevsky with the 4th pick. I know I'm not going to have him for 2 months, 4th round pick, I should say. Not going to have him for a couple of months, and that's fine. That's fine. I want him, as they were talking about earlier, I want him fresh for the playoffs. So as long as I'm able to get my tandem at some point and nobody snipes Jonas Johansson from me, I'll be okay. Now we're going through the draft here, and don't forget, one of the best ways to be prepared for a fantasy hockey draft is, by fantasyalarm.com. Right now, you can go and get the All Pro subscription. You get everything they have to offer, including the draft guide, NHL expert picks, tips, tools, and analysis all season long. Also, you have the League Sync feature that allows the rankings to fit your league settings so you can get the proper rankings. Works with NHL.com, and also gives you access to the exclusive Discord with one-on-one questions to guys like Chris. So please get on over to fantasyalarm.com and go all pro and take advantage of that. So certainly has helped me in some of my drafts here as we move along here, as we are in the 7th round of the American League draft here on Fantasy Alarm and the Better Sports Network. Matt Boldy just going at 7-3. Before that, we saw Josh Morrissey, Jordan Kyrou, and Jake Gensel. So let's look at some teams here. We've talked about Chris's team. And it's not just because I know him and work with him on Tuesdays on Better Sports Betting, but John and Pemba's team here. Leon Draisaitl, Sidney Crosby as your top 2 centers. You got Ilya Sorokin, so you've got your anchor in the crease. two very strong wingers here with Nylander and Connor, and then a solid blue line with Sergachev and Morrissey. So that's a pretty well-rounded team there for John about 7 rounds in.
He's been paying attention. He's been paying attention. I see you, John. I see you. Because I saw Mikhail Sergachev, and now he's no longer here. So John's been paying attention. It's unfortunate, but it's also good that he has been paying attention. He's been lurking somewhere.
Yeah, listen, you can't put one by John. He's not going to. You're not going to. He's not sleeping on anything, and you can't sleep on him either. So there you go. Sasha Barkov and Dylan Larkin go back to back their centers. The value at center in most drafts, like I'm very willing to wait on them because if I can get like a top flight guy, that's fine. And I'm very happy waiting and getting those second and third tier centers that still produce a ton. Adrian Kempe, a favorite of the Bettor Hockey Now crew, he just goes off the board there. Chris gets one of his sleepers. Two of his sleepers, and maybe he'll go 3 for 3. You get John Carlson there. You get him in the 7th round. That's probably right where he should go, considering all the defensemen that are off the board. He's got to be the guy to go there.
Yeah, look, I mean, there was once upon a time where John Carlson was, considered the elite defenseman in the NHL. The points were there. I'm not ready to write him off just here. He dealt with injuries last year. Concussions are hard to deal with for players. You never know what you're going to get out of them. So having a stud in Cale Makar and then having John Carlson, just the way this draft has been playing out, I'm not getting my hits and my block shots from Carlson or Makar, but I am getting the upside in points. And this is still a league where you're rewarded for goals and you're rewarded for assists. You're also rewarded for power play points. I don't know if you guys know of this player. His name is Alexander Ovechkin. I hear he's pretty good on the power play. I hear he just sets up in his office and just kind of hammers pucks away. So if John Carlson's going to be feeding him the puck on the power play, I'll gladly take, 4 points for the assist, and then you get 2 for the power play. So it's basically a goal every time Carlson's feeding Ovechkin. So I'm perfectly happy with that. I do think the Capitals will try to stay relevant as well. So they're going to be playing for something. I don't see anybody kind of stealing Carlson's spot. Rasmus Sandin was good, but John Carlson is still there. He's still being paid big dollars. He can still produce. So that's the point, or that's at least what I'm hoping on here. I need Carlson to stay healthy, which is important. And I think as long as he does that, that's a pretty good punch for me there on the back end. I'm very happy that John Carlson has fallen to me. And
Carlson did not, suffer a major knee injury or any, he got hit in the face with a puck and it knocked him out for most season. And when he came back, he was still scoring points.
Most hockey thing ever, right? Getting hit by a puck in the face. Just nothing you can do about it.
He scored a lot of points. You get him in the 7th round. I think he has been overlooked by a lot of people on this draft, and they will pay the piper when this season begins. And Chris is racking up points because he drafted John Carlson.
The other thing about Carlson, too, and we talked about this on Bettor Hockey Now, nobody's really going to be challenging him for power play time. Rasmus Sandin will be he'll run the second power play unit, and he'll get, he'll finish off whatever, power plays that Carlson was out there for 1.5 minutes already. But he's going to get every opportunity there. So we are in the 8th round of 17. Let's see here as I am on the clock in the Champions League draft.
He said, John Carlson, just to finish off that tie, he set a career high in goals, not last year because he was hurt. The year before that was 17. And I mean, he was what, 32 at that point. So, I mean, I don't know what, I understand the risk, right, of John Carlson, but I don't think this is a situation where, again, like you said, it's not a major knee injury. It's not a major shoulder, back, neck. We're talking about a guy who just got hit by a puck in the face, and those things happen. We've all been there. I got the scars to show them as well. So I'm hoping, like I said, just, duck your face, John, please, if the shot's coming for you. But like I said, he's not a guy who blocks shots to start with. I think as well the loss of Joel Edmondson, not that it was much, but that just means that somebody else has to step into that spot to play meaningful minutes. I'm not worried about Carlson's minutes as well. I don't think he's out there 25, 26, 27 minutes. I think they want to give him those quality minutes, which is something I'm happy about. So kind of a experienced version of Evan Bouchard, I would say.
One defenseman I want to talk about, Tyson Barrie. I mean, he's a second power play option there in Nashville, but he still gets taken before a lot of other D-men. Is 7th round a little too early for him, or is that the right spot for him because Nashville is going to be chasing a lot of games? At least we think they will be.
If they go with a 2 defenseman power play, then yes. If not, I think he's restricted in what he can do. He's not great defensively, so you're not bringing him out there to play defense. Ryan McDonough is probably the guy who's going to hold on to more of that. I do think he can benefit from playing next to Yossi. I think if the Preds want to really run those two out there a lot with, Barrie and Yossi, high risk, high reward kind of play there. Like I said, nothing. Tyson Barrie is not known for his defense, so there's only so much you can do there with him. But I do think that players of his caliber don't forget how to put the puck in the nets. Once upon a time, he led the league in scoring. He also played with the Edmonton Oilers, so there was that as well. I'm going to quickly make my pick here because I have him here. I'm going to reach a little bit, but I think the Connor Bedard effect is in full effect in Chicago, and it can only make everybody else around him better. So I think Seth Jones can have one of those bounce back years. You don't get paid a lot of money to sit. I'm going to be honest. I can't name the second defenseman in Chicago. So it's Seth Jones. He gets rewarded for hits. He gets rewarded for block shots. He can score. He can do a lot of good things for me. And having him as my third, completing my defense, I think I've done okay here.
And plus minus doesn't hurt you. So, that's the one thing about Seth Jones.
Correct. That's the good thing about being in one of these leagues, right? We don't count plus minus because we know that's a meaningless stat and that nobody cares for it. So I am very okay with that.
Speaking of Chicago and Connor Bedard, he went 5th in the 5th round. Do you think that's a good spot for him there? Should he, obviously the more he drops, the more value you're getting out of taking him. But is that the proper spot to draft Connor Bedard? Because if you're drafting in a keeper league, he's going in that 1st round. So for a league like this, where do you see fit for him to be taken?
I think that 5th round's probably a good spot because he's going to be the guy. He's going to get every opportunity, every minute. They're just going to run him out there and play him as much as they can. So for me in the 5th round, I mean, he's a top line center. Yeah, it's on a bad team, but I mean, if he produces the way everybody thinks he's going to produce in his rookie season, that's a fine spot for him there. I wouldn't let him go too much later than that if it was me.
He also makes everybody on his line better. He's going to drag that line. And we've seen the flashes of his skill that he is highly skilled and he does not look intimidated one bit by the NHL. He is out there toe dragging, releasing shots out there. He is creating offense. And, sometimes players come into the league and it is tough for an 18-year-old to adjust to the best league in the world. But there has not been a case for that him. You can watch highlight after highlight of him. Even the move, it didn't work against Marc-Andre Fleury, but I mean, he was out there still trying to, dipsy doodle around him in a shootout. So I don't think he's being intimidated by the league. I don't think he's being intimidated by, other players. I think he likes the competition. I think that's what he shares with McDavid. Those two just look determined to just be the best at what they want to do. It's right. So far he's holding on to just the center. I don't know if he's going to finish the year there. I think maybe if you want to take a little bit of responsibility off his shoulders, you can try to move him to the wing. I don't know, plug somebody else down the middle for him to kind of free up some space. But I have no problem with where he went. I think that's actually a discount getting him. I mean, we've been in leagues where he's gone, late 2nd, early 3rd for whatever reason. Yeah. I think where he went there is just perfect, right? You're not giving up too much value on him. But where he went as well, if that upside is there for him, let's say, 35 goals, 65 assists. I mean, if you're grabbing a player of that caliber that late, sure. Again, no hits, no block shots, but that's not what I'm expecting from him. I'll let somebody else figure that out.
Somebody else we can ask where they think about where Bedard should go is Chris Wassel of RotoBowler and Gambling.com. He had the 1st pick in the draft, so of course had the tough decision to take Connor McDavid there. So, I know you were nervous about that 1st pick, Chris. Glad to see you nailed it.
It was hard. I mean, I saw all those other picks that I could have taken, and I just decided I had to take Connor. Well, I had to take the correct Connor in this case.
I mean, it's a bold move there by McDavid. But speaking of the other Connor, so fifth round, you think that's a good place for him?
That is a pretty good place for him. I mean, if you think about it, with the way this draft is, there's no plus minus, there's no worries about getting penalized for having a god-awful team. Hint, Seth Jones, still an awful defenseman. And look, they're going to give up a lot of goals. He's going to have lots of chances. My only concern is a little bit with his finish, but that comes in time. And look, tomorrow, Tristan Jarry, he's the king of giving up some awfully soft goals. Just ask the Islanders. Anything is plus 200, by the way, still holding on for dear life on Caesars and BetMGM. DraftKings, somebody got tipped off because it dropped to 150 as soon as his last preseason game hit. So, get in while you can.
Chris, we're talking about value here. We just talked about with Connor McDavid. You took Tyler Toffoli here in that 8th round. We're talking about a guy that scored, what was it, 70 points there? No, wait, we were looking at his, he had 73 points 73 with a very tough Calgary Flames team. And now you're putting him in New Jersey, probably top line with Jack Hughes. I mean, taking him there in that 8th round, we're talking about some good value there for Tyler Toffoli. We're big fans of him here on the Bettor Hockey Now. So what are your thoughts on that top 6 line for the Devils and where they rank with like the Torontos and the Edmontons of the world?
Nobody's going to like to hear this, but the truth is the Devils have so many scary decisions to make in their top 9, never mind their top 6. That you can sit there and interchange a lot of these players at any time. Once guy's struggling a little bit, you can just plug in a Dawson Mercer. You can plug in this guy. The depth is ridiculous, and I think that's one of the big differences this year with the Devils compared to last year. Toffoli might honestly come down a notch, and that's almost okay because you're going to get a lot of other peripheral stats from him that you didn't get last year in that mess that was Calgary.
Now, when we talk about top 6s, Edmonton comes to mind, Toronto comes to mind, now Jersey comes to mind. Where do you rank them among, top 6 units that you want to have at least one share of in your leagues?
I mean, top 6 honestly is probably 3rd. I mean, you have to be honest with it. You can't sit there and say, "Oh, I can't rank Edmonton anything lower than 1," because look, in leagues like this where power play points are so tilted. I mean, I love people, projecting Connor McDavid to have a down year with 66 power play points. Let that sink in for a second. Think about the heydays of the 90s with Mario having like 80 something power play points. And then somebody from Yahoo coming in with a let's put it this way, maybe a 5,600K connection. And trying to load in and say, "Oh, he's only going to have 70 something power play points," and get laughed off the internet. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, again with McDavid, that's just the way to go. Now, so far, with you also got Hellebuck and Saros. You went back to back there in the 2nd and 3rd rounds on the turn. I love that you shored up your goaltending there. You're getting 2 workhorses, and there may be other tandems that are close, but I mean, in terms of not going with the goalie tandems within the team, that's pretty good.
Well, the thing is, it's always a gamble. Look, last year, and I won't make a secret of this, I started out 1-5 literally because I couldn't get a healthy goaltender. And it was bad. I mean, I had good goaltenders in theory. Unfortunately, right before the season, one goes down, then the other goes right down. And then my backup guy goes down a week later with who gets the flu in October for a week and a half? I mean, there's strange things that just happen in the fantasy league that you can't explain that aren't COVID. And unfortunately, it hurt. I mean, did it help that I played 2 of the top 3 teams in the league in the first maybe 3-4 weeks? No, of course not. But if I had these guys, would I have had a better chance? Yes. So lesson learned. Okay, I'll take the gamble. I'll take a little bit of a hit back, maybe with my offense, and try to build back later in the draft.
That is one thing in this format is if your goalie situation goes south a little bit, the floor can really come out from you quickly there with if you're not properly prepared. Another guy that you took, you went back to back Bouchard, Hughes to kind of shore up your defense there as well. Also love that move, just because with starting 3 defensemen, you want to have 2 quality guys there.
Yeah, you do. And then let's be honest. Quinn Hughes is quite a risk here. It's a reach. There is no doubt about this. And some people will say, well, no, but in the format, it's a reach because if you look, it's like, okay, the guy's expected to only score a handful of goals. I can count on barely two hands here. How many? Because he's projected to score 6. That being said, I do think he finds the net a little bit more. He is dead set intent on hitting the net 200 times this year. If he can do that and come anywhere close, he probably doubles his goal total. He probably gets somewhere near 40 power play points. I'll live with the peripheral stats that are not so good, especially hits and blocks, which with him, sometimes he is afraid to touch somebody on the ice. But you take what you can get.
Yeah, I had Quinn Hughes last season, and it took him a while to get started. Obviously, if he's not scoring any goals, it's a little bit tough to go with him. Chris, who is someone that you were targeting but may have gotten someone may have taken before you that you're like, man, I really wish I would have gotten that pick? And then who is someone that you were happy that fell to you?
The big one, obviously, it's not a secret. Wearing his jersey, for crying out loud. I do want to punch the certain person in the gut that took him from me. And, but it's, of course, Nico Hischier. Look, Hischier is the engine that makes that team go. He kind of jokes about it half-heartedly, but let's face it, Jack Hughes has actually said it on numerous occasions, whether it's autograph signings or press clippings or whatever. They know that team revolves the sun, the moon, etc. around Nico and how he plays. He is going to win the Selke Award this year. Now that Patrice Bergeron has finally retired, and what a hell of a career from my pick from a class act. Yeah, I saw it. I still can't believe he's favored by as much he is on some boards, but okay, all right. Maybe the Devils are finally getting their due. It's only taken 300 million years and getting out of this.
Had a good run in the 90s.
This is hilarious. Okay, I'll do this real quick because I know Ant is chomping at the bit. Look at the NHL.com picks, just from NHL.com and NHL Fantasy. I love the guys. Don't get me wrong. I've worked with them. I've done all sorts of things with them, but there is always a certain slant with the Rangers that, look, I'm not going to lie. It pisses me off. It really does. Because it's like, come on. You saw what happened last year. You see what's going on this year. And look, if you're an owner of Alexis Lafreniere right now, you're hoping to God that, I don't know, maybe Laviolette gets kidnapped or something, because it kind of, you don't want to be too wrong on this because it's early, but it kind of feels like deja vu all over again with another coach. Look, it's not Lafreniere. I know fans, media, etc. want to get on him. It's the coaching staff. It really is with him at this point, because there's just something not connecting there. It's not the player.
I mean, listen, speaking as a Rangers fan, I hope they can figure it out with Laffy. I don't, I think they are a playoff team for sure, but I don't know why people think they're more than a one or two.
Did you see the 110 point projection that 110 places are thrown out?
No, I can't. No, that in that division, especially, like, it's going to be, the Devils and the Hurricanes are going to be like trying to sweat it out at 111, 110, 109 to win that division. Do the Rangers break 100? Maybe, but I don't see more than that. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I just don't, I need to see it on the ice after last year, like, it's just that there's no reason for me to think that they're any significantly better than they were the previous year.
My simple concern with the Rangers, and even from just a fantasy hockey perspective, is this: can they handle the pace of these teams that are playing faster and faster over an 82 game season? And I don't have an answer for that. I can be the first one to admit and say I don't know. And there's a bunch of teams that are kind of in that middle upper class of the league that you can say the same for that. You just don't know until you see enough of the product on the ice at regular season speed.
And my honest answer to that is I think some nights they can, and some nights it'll be painfully obvious that they can't. I think that's going to be the answer to that. Now, just to go back to a couple of your picks here that you've made while you're on with us. Obviously, Tyler Toffoli. Philip Forsberg is a guy I've seen kind of going later and later in drafts, and I don't, I understand why, but I don't understand why. And I think you got him at a nice spot there at 9. I think he's still the top guy in Nashville on the left side.
I'm taking the one golden gamble of one golden gambles with him because look, it's tomorrow night. There's a certain guy on here right now that knows where I'm going with this, and I'm surprised he's not chuckling because he knows this is true. It is Forsberg Tuesday. It is time. It's been a long time. It's been painful.
I was going to mention it at some point.
I was so saddened last year when he got injured as late as he did, because that was one of the pickups that I made in this league that was sneaky enough that got me into the playoffs. He gets me into the playoffs and then promptly gets hurt right before the playoffs start. Remember, that was, Saros was then banged up too, and it was just like, oh, here come the wheels falling off faster than the Titanic has sunk.
Well, Chris, you went back-to-back defense there again after going Bouchard and Hughes earlier, Montour and Chychrun there. Really solid decor there.
Yeah, I'm not making a secret of being able to stash Montour until the bum shoulder gets well, because we probably won't see him until after Christmas. So I'll be able to at least use that one spot and then be able to, again, hopefully take a few shots down in the dark in the last 6 picks of the draft.
And you want to, at least one of your picks, stash someone on IL or, someone that's possibly coming back soon. You're going to want to have one of those guys on IL ready to go that maybe someone else is overlooking.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I know Nick Ehlers was down. I know somebody asked who's a guy that I would be happy if they fell to me, but probably just got drafted, and that of course would be Nick Ehlers. Yes, the guy misses chunks of time. I get it. I understand the talk. But if somebody can just, I don't know, maybe you tape Rick Bonus's eyes shut, blindfold him temporarily, so that this guy winds up on the top line, on the top power play unit. Blake Wheeler's finally gone. Let it, let the years of mediocrity go and let the kid play. He might stay healthier just because he would play with a guy like Scheifele, for example, who, signed that big, huge 7-year extension along with Connor Hellebuyck earlier today.
Yeah, big news with Hellebuyck and Scheifele out of Winnipeg. Chris, you've been awesome, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk about your draft and about things around the league. Promote what you got coming up this season for coverage for Roto-Baller and Gambling.com.
Okay, for the big things for Gambling.com, we're going to have a couple nice. We're going to have a prop day for those that don't know. Obviously, we have our picks that came out, I think this afternoon, if they got the Gremlins right. And hey, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens there. Like I said, props, all sorts of them. We might even have the can the Devils not blow a 2-goal lead in the Stadium Series? I'm sure it's going to come up at some point. And of course, you can find all my stuff on Roto-Baller. I'll be running the NHL news desk at some point, which means I get to take a administrator side role, if you will, which means, nice. Oh dear God, they're letting somebody like me be in charge of something, which can be bad. So you'll find me there. I'll be answering questions probably in their NHL Discord for DFS and everything else. And that's pretty much it, guys.
Well, Chris, really appreciate it. This was awesome, and happy drafting the rest of the way. You got 6 picks to go here. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, hope the draft goes the way you want it the rest of the way. Thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
All right, so there is Chris Wassel of Roto-Baller. Coming up shortly here will be Rob Tuesday to talk about the Champions League draft that we are. I got to say, I think we're moving along quicker in this that draft than we are in the American League draft here. We will see. So let's do a little recap here. Now, you're looking at this 11th round. You're seeing a lot of green. That means a lot of defensemen here. So it's time to start filling up that third defensive spot or maybe your bench spot.
Yeah, you see all these defensemen going here right after Chris took Montour and Chikrin. You got Letang, Nurse, Uyghur, Forsling, Truba, and then we got Chris breaking the mold. He goes with a guy that's a sleeper to me. I'm very interested in a lot of Andrei Svechnikov here.
I am as well. I mean, he's coming off his knee surgery, so I don't know how that's going to play out. I do know one thing. He like the same thing, a little bit of a cheap version of JT Miller. He likes to throw his weight around. He's a big boy. He can produce as well. He's been a little bit unlucky with injuries. So I need Svechnikov to take the secret sauce, whatever that may be, whatever bumps and bruises he can heal with some natural remedies, of course. I need him, to be at his top, because when he's a top 6 guy. He's in the top 6. He's a lock. Nobody's really, questioning him. Is he a point per game player? I don't think so, even on a really good Carolina team. But he's got a spot there. And you saw how the Carolina Hurricanes kind of struggled a little bit when he was out of the lineup. So to me, he makes the team better. He can fill that line, either second one, top line with Aho. If he's going to play with Kotkaniemi, great. But I know that there is some upside there. I just need him to be healthy.
Coming up again here with your 12th round pick, just a few picks away. I'm currently in that area of the draft where I've got a couple of guys that I'm really hoping that I can get at my next turn here. And because I have somebody in the back, our next guest, that picks before me, I will not be talking about who I want to get. I see him laughing back there as he's on the clock here in a couple of picks. Let's take a look. Oh, okay. Anyway, so looking back at this draft here at the current one, when we take a look at this upcoming round here, we see a couple of centers go off the board: Joel Eriksson and Matty Beniers, Bo Horvat previously. At this point in the draft, this is the point where you want to kind of like take your shots and get your guys, because I don't think anybody's really a bust at this point.
There's opportunity, right? You're looking for upside, right? At least that's where I'm at. I need a couple of home runs at some point, right? And last year's champion mentioned it quickly, right? He had great value on great players late, and that helped kind of build it, right? Chris Wassel mentioned it as well. Even though it was his rough start to his season, he was still able to kind of bounce back and get things going. I would say, at least for me, and I've mentioned it a lot of times with a lot of different people, your picks late in the draft are more important than your picks at the beginning, because at the beginning they're all there, they all look the same, kind of think of it as a high-end buffet, right, where all the picks are good. It doesn't matter where you go wrong. For me now, I'm just looking for some good value here, kind of somebody I can bank on. I know who I want to go here, so I'm not going to hassle everybody with having to wait for me. There's a lot of changes that are happening in Calgary, and Elias Lindholm's going to benefit from that. He's going to be playing with some skilled players. Hopefully, the Daryl Sutter being out of town experiment kind of helps him, helps some of his line mates, just helps that entire team. That's what I'm looking for here. I need if Elias Lindholm can get back to where he wants to be. Whether it's in Calgary or somewhere else, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's in a contract here as well. So wherever he wants to be in life, whether it's in Carolina, great city as well, lots of things to do. So if he wants to be there, great. If he wants to be somewhere else, we can arrange that for him as well. He is a UFA as well. So how many times have we heard about the player being a UFA? All of a sudden just having a career year. So that's what I'm banking on here.
And yeah, in another league, I actually kept Lindholm because, hits, face-offs, all that stuff matter. And I mean, he had a 33 and 42 in a year where they weren't really trying to play a whole ton of offense, and now they're going to be happy. Yeah, I am all about that. I am all about getting any flames I can on the bounce back. So hold on, I'm on my turn here. I got to make sure I make my picks.
As a third center for me, right? Because I would still like Pierre-Luc Dubois to play the center position as well. I got a lot of guys, and I think I've mentioned this how I like, especially my center core. I got guys who can play dual position. So, I mean, JT Miller can play the wing. Pierre-Luc Dubois is apparently classified as a winger. So there, I can have that flexibility to move players in and out of that center spot because we know every centerman, I mean, or at least the way Yahoo has put it together, there's a lot of dual position eligibility. You like to have that roster flexibility to move guys in and out as to where you need them to be. So I am very happy with having Elias Lindholm as that, I guess, that center. The Flames have a lot of depth as well down the middle. So they may elect at times if they want to go really top line heavy, they can move Nazem Kadri up since Michael Backlund is there and he can assume great roles. I'm kind of dreaming in color a little bit here of maybe Elias Lindholm getting that dual position eligibility at some point somewhere, but it's not uncommon to see centermen move to the wing. It's a little bit harder to see wingers move to center. So I'm just at this point, the flexibility in my roster kind of helps me out a lot.
Now, the other draft that's going on, we've got about 3 rounds left there, is the Champions League draft. And joining us now to talk about that draft is the executive producer of SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, an old friend of mine and a heavy dose of Bruins fan here, Mr. Rob Touzé. Now, just to give you an idea of this man's dedication to fantasy hockey, we are in another league, and he once live drafted from an Alice in Chains concert. So that is this man's dedication to fantasy hockey. So, Rob, welcome aboard.
How you doing, Adam? Thank you so much for having me.
So, we're going to try and get without trying to screw up people's drafts here. We're going to try and get the draft board up in the league that we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking at you. Let me pull your team up here. So you got Jack Eichel and Martin Necas at your centers. You got, of course, you got David Pastrnak here as your wing. So let's start there. Pastrnak, where do you rank him? If McDavid's 1 and Draisaitl's 2, where do you rank Pastrnak?
Well, for me, he's 3. And I had the 4th pick overall. I wasn't expecting to get him. I was trying to talk myself into McKinnon or Austin Matthews. And when McKinnon went before Pasta, it was really a no-brainer for me to jump in there. He's a potential 50-goal scorer. I mean, every year, yeah, they lost a lot on that team. You know, there may not be the firepower that was there last year, but Pasta's Pasta. Power play points are power play points, and 50 goals is 50 goals.
Now, do you worry about, obviously they're not going to score 135 points again, but do you worry about how much of a regression do you really think there's going to be there?
I don't worry about it too much because I think they added the complementary players. So I think the power play points are still going to be there, with the James Van Riemsdykes of the world. And they added some chippy players too that will play that quote unquote Bruins hockey. So I think the production from the top line guys will still be there. There'll be a dip. You won't see, you won't see Hampus Lindholm put up, an ungodly plus minus number. But I think that for the stars, for Pasta, for Marchand, I think you will see the numbers still be there.
Now, we pulled up your team on the screen here. There's Rob Touzé. So you took Pastrnak with the first pick, and then you come back there with Ovechkin. I mean, that's a pretty powerful 1-2 punch on the wing.
Yeah, and I was really looking at it. Center is deep. People kind of overlook the center position. It is pretty deep. I mean, here we're in the 14th round, and I was looking at Nick Suzuki coming on the turn, went right after you took the Lightning goalie. It just shows how deep center is. You can get a 30-goal scorer here in the 14th round. So that's why I opted to start off going pretty heavy on wing. And then after that, I saw the kind of a run on the top defenseman, looking at the people that are going to get the hits and take a lot of shots. So that's where, just to kind of move it along here, that's where I jumped on. I jumped on Seth Jones probably earlier than someone should have, but I wanted him. I think it's an up and coming team. Yet plus minus may not necessarily be there, but with Seth Jones, I think he's going to do a lot of things. And for that price, like I said, some of the other ones were starting to come off the board there.
I'm glad we shared that opinion about Seth Jones because I'm in the exact same boat there. I also picked him on my team, and I think that just the effect of Connor Bedard being there, the effect of everybody being there, they're still going to lose hockey games. There's no question about that. They're going to be at the bottom of that overall standings, but they're going to be a fun team to watch. And Seth Jones is still, the offensive defenseman on that team. He's still the top quarterback on that power play, so he's going to have the opportunities. It's just a question of, I guess, finishing.
And just to show you how fun this team's going to be, so we're right now in the Champions League draft, we're paused. I'm on deck. I've got another Blackhawk queued up. I'm ready to go. It's because I think they will be kind of that fun team to watch, and I think they can surprise a lot of people.
One thing I like that you did, we talked about the importance of goalie tandems in this league, and that's why I took Johansson where I did there, because I didn't want to get another round to go by and somebody takes him, and it kind of blows up my plan when I took Vasilevsky there. But you have you secured the Bruins goalie tandem. So in both leagues, the Bruins goalies both go to one team. You also have Thatcher Demko there and Logan Thompson. So you are pretty well established in the crease.
I've made some mistakes in these leagues before where I just kind of wait on goaltending, or I get my two goalies and then I just wait to fill out the bench depth. As we know, I mean, in that net, bench depth is tough. It's tough to come with that. And I actually said in the chat room while we were making that pick, I said, it's a football term, handcuff your running backs. So I'm going to handcuff my goalie here and take Swayman to go alongside Ullmark. And I actually think that this is the year that Swayman takes a step forward. I think it's going to be Swayman over Ullmark this year. Not a popular choice because Ullmark was all world last year. But I think that this year, Swayman is actually going to be the guy that people want instead.
And you get Taylor Hall there. You mentioned you had a Blackhawk ready to go, and there he is. He's going to, as long as he stays healthy, he'll be riding with Bedard and get a lot of points there just by being on the same line as him. Another guy, I agree. I think maybe Swayman. I still think it's close to a 50-50 workload, but I think we're going to see Swayman be on the north side of 50 and Ullmark maybe a little bit on the south side of 50, but I think it'll be pretty close there.
And that defense was great last year. The defense is still going to be solid this year. So that's going to help a lot with the numbers in net.
Paul, we talk about the Boston and Pastrnak losing, Bergeron, now getting Pavel Zacha on the top line. I'm a Devils fan, and I've been through the Pavel Zacha, saga in New Jersey. But could, we always talk about how he can affect Pastrnak, but could Pastrnak affect Zacha in a more positive way to bring some value in the later rounds, possibly for drafting a Pavel Zacha?
Absolutely. I think he can. I mean, we saw flashes of what Pavel Zacha could do last year. He shined in the playoffs. Granted, they surprised everyone by only having 7 games in the playoffs. But Pavel Zacha made some plays, and he proved that he can take it to the next level. I know you say as a Devils fan, you kind of just waiting for it to happen. I think with the environment that's there and the team that's around him, I think it's set up for him to take it to the next level.
Another guy on your team I want to get into a little bit here is Tarasenko going to Ottawa. Ottawa's got a nice mix of guys in their top 6, and he's not what he used to be. But I mean, plugging a guy like him in there, we saw what he did with the Rangers down the stretch. I like that move there, especially where you got him there in the 13th round.
Well, and power play points, don't forget about it. He's still a sniper. And everyone says Ottawa's going to put up points. Ottawa's going to be in the mix for the playoff spot. Ottawa's going to be very productive offensively. I wanted a piece of that offense. Another one that you see, I just took Seth Jarvis here. I love Carolina this year. I wanted to get some pieces of that Carolina team, and that's why I wound up taking Svechnikov, still listed on long-term IR, but I think that'll clear up soon. And I took Nietzsche as well. But now with Seth Jarvis added that, I wanted a piece of these good teams. I mean, look, I'm a Bruins fan, but you can't bet with your heart. You can't go in everything with your heart. I have Carolina beating Dallas in the final. So I wanted a piece of that team. In fact, in the second round, I was kind of bummed that Ottinger went in towards the end of the first round because I had him queued up to go in the second round.
I'm coming up here on the clock. I'm about 4 picks away. I honestly have no idea what I want to do at this point.
Don't look at me. I'm not offering any suggestions.
No. I don't expect you to offer any. I'm just trying to figure out what I got 2 picks here, and I know who I'm taking with my last pick. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here with this pick.
I see your Devin Levi pick there. I just want to point that out. I see it there.
It's right there on the right.
Welcome to the Devin Levi fan club. It's free membership. You're welcome anytime you want.
Let's get a Bruins fan thought on Devon Levi there. How much do you worry about him in the division now?
Well, we heard about it last year. We heard not so much Levi, but we heard about Buffalo last year. Last year was supposed to be the year that Buffalo, Detroit, that Ottawa took that step forward. At the end of the day, what was it? It was Boston, it was Toronto, it was Tampa. I'm not saying it's going to be like that again this year, but I mean, look, a young goalie, there's going to be some hiccups there. I don't care how good he is. And Buffalo's going to be flashy. Buffalo can score with the best of them this year. But what's the knock on Buffalo coming into this year? Their defense. I don't really want a young goalie with bad defense in front of them, because young goalies going to make enough mistakes on their own. When you throw in spotty defense, it's a recipe for disaster.
So I took my last defenseman there, Mackenzie Weegar, just to
and he was someone I had just queued up, hoping that he was come back to me here in this round. So
now I got to make my penultimate pick here. Let's see.
And there you go. Pavel Zacha went just one pick right before you.
I'm going to go for a little bit of a reach here, but I want a part of this top line. Ivan Barbashev, because he gets hits.
Yes. Yep.
And
hits factor in, just like they do in the NHL. They set everything up for the actual game, for the league. I'm glad that hits is finally a stat here in fantasy.
So I'm going to have the last pick of this draft as we enter round 16 of the Champions League draft of the FSGA Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft here on Better Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Well, I got you here, Rob. Before we get you out of here, what do you think about my team here? We'll go. We got Kachuk, Makar, Dahlin, Vasilevsky, DeBrincat. Love Adrian Kempe because he gets those hits. You can see the rest of the guys on the right side. What do you think about my team?
I really like what you've done. Scheifele was another one that I had ready to go. I almost took him before when with that previous pick, but I was like, no, I think I can wait on him because he's bad team. Does he want to get out of there? So I really like what you've done there with getting Scheifele late. I mean, let's face it, that's where he's going. And it's funny because from the second that you took Vasilevsky, I said, okay, I know what he's going to try to do later. Let's see if he can actually get it. But I like the team that you're putting together there. You're going to score. You got solid. Getting Cale Makar as one of the first defensemen to come off. I mean, you can't argue with that. And I love both of the Kachuks. I think anytime you walk away with a draft with a Kachuk in there, because hits count, because all the stat categories that we count here, I think it's a solid pick. You can do a lot worse.
I will say, if somebody sniped Jonas Johansson from me, there would have been a visible reaction on this, because that would have blown up my entire strategy. Because I said when I picked Vasilevsky at the 4th round, I said I could take him there, or I could take Gustafsson. And then I have to worry about getting Fleury in the tandem and invest the draft capital to get that, where I figure I could wait a little bit on Johansson. So, yeah, it would have been a very bad reaction in the middle of the draft. People were like, what is the problem? But I got it and it all worked out. So, Rob, again, really appreciate it here, you coming on. Actually, if you want to hang out I saw you get Tyler Bertuzzi there. We talked about him earlier with Michael Feinwax. If you want to hang out for your last pick, love that.
Yeah, that's fine. And with the Bertuzzi pick, I'm wearing the Bruins shirt. Old habits die hard. I took Taylor Hall, then I took Tyler Bertuzzi. That was one that I really didn't want to see get away from the Bruins. He was a guy that, if there was ever someone that was carbon copy made to be a Bruin, it was Tyler Bertuzzi. Didn't want to see them let him go, but I guess I kind of get it here. And now with my final pick, I'm just going to go because I know that hits and blocks is a category, and my final pick, I need a defenseman. Give me Radko Gudas.
Now, if Adam Larson was there, he went 3 picks before that. Are you taking him, or are you still going Gudas there?
I probably would have taken Larson. I've liked Larson since he first came into the league. I probably would have gone there, but it wasn't available for me. And I mean, let's face it. Like I said, hits. I mean, projected over 300 hits. He still gets over 100 blocks. He's not going to put up points, but you're not drafting him for that side of it.
Game Night Sports taking J.J. Moser. They believe that's Digger Turnbull. I love that pick. He is a defenseman in deep leagues that I am very much sleeping on. Everybody talks about Sean Durzi. Moser was getting it done last year. I can't see them taking away his opportunity just yet. So really shrewd pick there. We got 4 picks left to go here before the Champions League wraps up. Rob, thanks so much for coming on, executive producer at Fantasy Sports Radio. Anything you want to promote coming up on SXM FSR for hockey coverage?
No, and obviously we're in the throes of football season, so we're still talking hockey a little bit here and there, but it's the throes of football season, so we're just hard and heavy with that, and look on the app, on the SiriusXM app, for some content there that you will see every now and then some fantasy hockey talk pop up.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. It was good to see you in Vegas earlier in the year, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks so much for stopping by the Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft here on Bettor Sports Network.
You too, guys. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, so we got 2 more picks to go here. May as well keep the draft board up through my last pick, and there it is. And because I have to shore up Devon Levi, I'm going to be taking a UPL here from the Sabres instead of saying his whole name. So there we go. That draft in the books. We get that off the screen. We still got some picks coming up here, the American League draft. So let's get that off the screen. We're almost done here on the 2023 Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft, FSGA Fantasy Alarm, Bettor Sports Network. So let's get draft back up on the screen.
Something that I've been noticing in both drafts, I've been seeing, a Darcy Kemper, a Josh Gibson, those guys, even Husso in Detroit being taken over, a goalie like Aiden Hill, who has a strong defense in front of him, coming off that Stanley Cup championship. Maybe even Logan Thompson as well, even though he's coming off an injury. But that goalie tandem in Las Vegas, should they be drafted, over guys like Josh Gibson and well, obviously in this league they weren't, but in the other one, I saw Kemper before him. I saw Josh Gibson before him. Are you guys, are they being taken too late, or are they in the right position to be drafted?
I think for me, if you for sure want to go with a tandem strategy, you can wait on the Vegas goalies and get them. Somebody that I know Andrew Dewhurst had on his bust list, which you could go over to the fantasyalarm.com/NHL right now. And if you sign up for the All Pro package at fantasyalarm.com/win, you'll be able to get that. But here's a little bit of a tease of some of the busts in that article. And Aiden Hill's one of them. And after watching him in San Jose previously, and listen, I understand there's a huge difference between the Sharks blue line that was letting Carlson basically play as a fourth forward versus the Vegas blue line, which is one of the best in the league. But I can certainly see a little bit of a step back there. And let's not forget, Logan Thompson was the guy. He lost his job due to injury. So I would not be surprised to see if that's more of a 2/3 share, 1/3 share, despite the fact that Hill got them across the line last year. I could still see Thompson being a guy there. In terms of the John Gibsons of the world with the workload, I'd probably rather go for the Vegas tandem than get like a Gibson that's going to probably play 65 to 70 times. But how many times? If it's a league where wins don't matter, now it changes things. But most league wins matter, and that keeps me away from a Gibson or an Elvis Merzlikins, despite the fact that they're going to get a lot of playing time.
I drafted Logan Thompson, if that is worth anything. So that's where I think I think maybe there's still. I mean, they're so good, Vegas, right? Just as a team per se, that maybe Aiden Hill benefits from that. But I am also of the belief that Logan Thompson, through no fault of his own, just got hurt, and he was not able to recuperate his spot. And that's just the thing. But I mean, Vegas rolled out. I mean, Jonathan Quick was an option. That's how good that team was. Jonathan Quick was at least a thought at some point to be a goalie for that team. So, I mean, I wanted to go with the tandem there. Luckily, I didn't have to think about it too long, because like 6 picks later, that was no longer an option for me. So I had to go down a little bit and go with the second option, which was Phoenix Copley. I think that's also another split in LA. You got a goalie who, unfortunately, looking at his numbers, suffers from the Martin Jones effect, which is, high wins, low losses, but the outstanding numbers are not really what they should be. I can't trust Cam Talbot to stay healthy. I don't think that's a thing. So I think Copley at some point is going to be able to run with that net, and it's up to him to kind of hold on to it. And again, LA is a good team. They've added more pieces. This is a team that, they finished I think top 5 in shots for per game. So they're a team that shoots the puck, and, basic hockey here for just in general, If you are shooting the puck, you are not in your defensive zone. So it is extremely hard to give up goals when you're in the offensive zone. And if the LA Kings spend a lot of time there, they should be okay. They also benefit from having to play San Jose and Anaheim a little bit. So those are kind of, if let's say Cam Talbot is the quote unquote number one guy, and you want to play Copley on the, against the inferior opponent or on a back-to-back, you'll probably get some of those games. And I'm perfectly okay with him going up against, San Jose a couple of times a year. I'll take those easy ones.
That's also another goalie tandem you can wait on. We talked about Vegas earlier, Talbot, Copley, if that's the way you want to go. I know some people about Copley like, oh, but he's not that good, blah, blah, blah. It's like, listen, they did what they did last year with him at splitting the workload. And, Talbot, listen, if he's only got to go out there half the time, health is an issue. It's just funny. I was just thinking about back when it was the year Henrik Lundqvist got hurt and Cam Talbot took over and played very well for the Rangers. And there was actually a sentiment in the fan base that they should have kept Talbot and not Lundqvist. Even at the time, I knew that was absurd, but I'm like, really? And,
every team does something like this. This miracle run comes out and they're like, oh, should we go cheaper and get rid of the high-priced player? And
I'm
go
old enough
way?
to remember when Habs fans thought Yaroslav Halak was the guy and that Carey Price should not be there. And I kept receipts, by the way, because I was heavy on the Carey Price train. I was like, hey, maybe we let the kid develop. I don't know. Maybe he's playing goal in the in the worst market to be a goalie for. And oh, by the way, some of his predecessors have been elite. Maybe we give him a moment. And, he's one day going to be a Hall of Famer. And, we'll all just laugh about those, the Halak trucers. They were selling t-shirts with like Halak and the stop sign on it. You can get for like $20 on the street.
To be fair, I remember that first round series when they upset the President's Trophy winning Capitals. Halak was a plucky goaltender in that series.
He did. And then he did it against Pittsburgh. Mike Camilleri showed up. That was his, his little party. Had a great time just clapping bombs and stuff. But yes, I am old enough to remember when some people want to just write off, the goalie because of a short spurt of something. That only works for contracts, right? That's only when your agent can say, hey, look how good he is in the really, really small sample size.
We are got one pick to go, and then we can put this draft in the books. The Champions League draft wrapped up a few minutes ago. The American League draft, last pick, Mr. Irrelevant, coming up here. Your last two picks there, Matthew Knees and Jason Zucker. Listen, at the end of the draft, that's when you take your darts and you throw them and hope you hit a bullseye at some point.
You're right. I went early on Logan Cooley because I was not going to get him sniped by somebody else that I reached, sure. But at that point of the draft, I felt really good about being able to acquire another Arizona forward because now I got Clayton Keller, I got Logan Cooley. Maybe I'll head out to the desert, get some college game tickets, have a really great time there in the barn. But I needed that. For me, Matthew Knies, there's a lot of hype. He was really good in the preseason. Take preseason as you want. But he was there. He was noticeable. I think for him, he's got to be in that top six to really, really mess. I don't know if he's going to get any power play time. I think they like guys like Bertuzzi and Domi more. I think he's got a task to get to the top. But if anybody can do it and all the love that he's getting, and if William Nylander is indeed a third line center, right? Daily Faceoff doesn't have him there. They have him back on the wing because I don't think that's a long-term thing. I think that's just, some talk out of camp of what things you want to do. But if he is indeed a third line center and Matthew Knies plays with him, I mean, sure, I can very much get behind that. I can be very happy. And Jason Zucker is just trying to probably get his bag, probably get his money, play himself out of Arizona, get himself on a contender. So I think I can get good value out of him for half a year and then see where he goes. If he's traded to a contender, maybe he moves down the lineup. But he was just never able to get his footing in Pittsburgh, which was unfortunate. Injuries and everything. It's kind of hard to trust a player where if you can't make a career playing next to Sidney Crosby, you'll make it in the desert. But he's there. He's going to bring that experience. And again, Arizona's a team that's going to be playing catch-up hockey on most nights. They're not very good. They're not going to win a lot. I accidentally backdoored myself into 3 Arizona players on my team. I did not line myself up like that. If you told me I'd have 3 Arizona forwards on my team, I would have laughed at you. But sometimes that's just how we do.
But you also got a nice little stack right there to end the
I do.
the draft. Going
look.
Zucker, Cooley together in that second pairing, and then they're going to be in the second power play pairing. You can easily scoop up some points there.
You're right. I'm sure I can find a retailer here that's selling an Arizona Coyotes jersey somewhere. If not, I'm sure that they have some at Mullet Arena. So maybe I have secretly become a Arizona Coyotes fan, which I feel like would just come full circle after everything I've said about them.
That would be a nice happy little bow on that. And listen, you can have them as a second team. They'll enjoy. Listen, they want to get like over 20,000 fans. So like
they would be third though, because by default, Devin Levi, just a fan of him. So by default, the Sabres kind of, they have that spot, but it's a Devin Levi fan club first. So I guess Arizona would be a third. I'm just picking the best teams possible.
Now, fellas, I want to just throw it out there that we've made it. Puck drops tomorrow. We got 2 drafts in the books tonight. I did 3 yesterday. I mean, fantasy hockey season's here. It's finally here. When we started doing Bettor Hockey Now back in July, this date looked very far away, but we are here, guys. It's very exciting.
It is now officially 24 hours away.
It's officially 24 hours away, and still time to get in a little draft preview there. Draft guide, go to fantasyalarm.com/win. Get the All-Pro and get the draft guide for your last-second drafts, but the benefits last throughout the season. Chris, Andrew Duhurst, Josh Wagner, they're going to bring you betting analysis, daily DFS playbook, player projections, weekly waiver wire and injury reports. You're going to get your money's worth throughout the season there on fantasyalarm.com/NHL, but go to fantasyalarm.com/win to sign up. Now, I want to say a few thank yous before we get out of here. First of all, thank you to our guest, Michael Feinwax, the defending champion from RotoWire, Paul Bruno also from RotoWire, and then, of course, Chris Wassel of RotoBaller and Gambling.com, and Rob Tuesday, the executive producer for SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And also, got to send some thank yous out to Better Boss Matt Deutsch, who is very helpful behind the scenes. Better Sports executive producer Brian Drozda. FSGA, thank you so much to them, as well as Digger Turnbull. And, of course, Al Williams and Howard Bender as well. Should get some shout-outs there. But Better Hockey Now will be back with you next Tuesday, the 17th. Tomorrow night, the puck drops. We're very excited, folks. We're going to be with you throughout the season on Better Hockey Now and Fantasy Alarm. But for Mr. Christopher Morais at FuzzyChris91, for Mr. Anthony Rivera at AntRivera86, for the 2023 FSGA Fantasy Hockey Experts Draft, I'm Adam Bernard at Puck and Thoughts. Back with you real soon here on BSN.
The FSGA Fantasy Hockey Expert Drafts on Bettor Sports Network.